I'm 22 years old now, and this happened about a year and a half ago when I had just moved into my first apartment. I was still getting settled in, and the door to my place automatically locks when it shuts. So one day, I stepped out to check the mail at the front of the complex while chatting on the phone with my boyfriend. When I got back inside, I sat on the bed, flipping through the mail, still on the call. At some point, I dropped my phone, and it slid under the bed. So I got down on the floor and reached under to grab it. That's when I saw something that completely froze me. There was someone under my bed. I didn't scream, even though every part of me wanted to. My eyes went wide, and I just stared. The person was lying perfectly still with their back facing me and his head tucked into his chest. I couldn't see his face, and thankfully, he didn't see me. Trying to stay calm while my brain was going 100 miles an hour, I picked up the phone and said as casually as I could, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just going to take a shower, and I'll call you back." I walked into the bathroom, which is right next to my bed, locked the door behind me, turned on the shower, and then climbed out the window. Luckily, I lived on the first floor. Once I was outside, I called the police, and they told me to wait somewhere safe, but asked me to keep an eye on the building in case anyone left. So I crossed the street and crouched behind a car where I could see both the entry door and my bathroom window. I called my boyfriend right away, and he got there just before the police showed up. I handed my keys to the officers, and they went in. Not long after, 2 cops came out holding this thin, exhausted-looking man. He looked out of it, eyes wide and wild, but he didn't fight or try to run. One of the officers had been standing with me the whole time, trying to keep me calm, because honestly, I was shaking and crying. And that's when he told me something that still makes my stomach turn. That man had been standing right outside the bathroom door, holding one of my kitchen knives, waiting for me to come out. Turns out, he had slipped into my apartment while I was outside getting the mail and hid under my bed. He was a homeless man with severe mental health issues and was later taken to a psychiatric facility. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day. The police told me the way I handled it probably saved my life. They said if I had screamed or panicked, it could have ended really badly. It was a Friday night, and I had just gotten out of school and had to head straight to work. I worked a short 4-hour shift, and after work, my aunt, who's also my boss, tells me we're out of spoons for tomorrow's event. We sell ice cream, and these events pull in over 5,000 people. So, yeah, we kind of need spoons. I said, "No problem. I'll grab some on my way home." The only store open that sells the heavy-duty kind is across town. I still wanted to meet up with my friends later, so I decided to take the faster route, even though it cuts through the sketchier outskirts of town. I live in one of those states where the weather can't make up its mind, and it had snowed the night before, but I figured the roads would be all right, even if they hadn't been plowed yet. The first 5 minutes went by smoothly. I haven't seen a single car or building, which wasn't too surprising since it's pushing 9 p.m., and this part of town is pretty deserted unless you really need to be out there. And something caught my eye. There's a man in the ditch. He looks about 5'8" in, wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and a backwards cap, walking through the snow like it's not 10 outside. My first instinct is to pull over, but I'm on the phone with my mom, and she immediately tells me not to. She reminded me of a local case from a few years back where a college girl was kidnapped and found wrapped in a rug. That was 2014. I hesitate for a second, but decide not to stop. I pass the guy, going maybe 40, and the roads are still slick. Not even 500 feet later, a car I hadn't seen before suddenly turns on and pulls out of what looked like a field entrance and started following me. At first, I thought maybe I just didn't notice a road while focusing on the guy in the ditch. But later I checked, and yeah, there's no road there. Still, I'm not too alarmed. I've watched enough crime movies, and read enough Reddit stories to keep cool. I start getting closer to town and make a few turns. I go left, they go left. I go right, they go right. I circle a roundabout and skip my exit just to see. And yep, they circle too. Now I'm starting to feel a little tense, but I tell myself maybe they're just heading to the same store. I got to a stop sign that wasn't in the nicest area either, and I made a turn without signaling. The car does the exact same thing. I should have gone straight to the police station, but I figured I was only 2 miles from a well-lit store, and if anything went down, at least there'd be people around. I kept driving and blew through a stop sign at a quiet intersection, and they did a quick stop and go, then caught right back up. 2 more turns, and I'm at the store. I pulled into the parking lot, and they followed. There's a gas station attached, so I pull in and pretend to get gas. The other car just stopped off to the side of the road and just sat there. I waited 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They didn't move. Now I'm actually nervous. I'm just a kid. It's dark, and I'm alone on a bad side of town. I called my friends, who were the ones I was supposed to meet up with, and gave them the license plate number just in case, then crossed the street to the store. And yep, they pulled in right behind me. I parked near the store entrance, and they parked 3 rows behind me, a few spots over. It's almost closing time. Barely anyone's around. I turned my truck back on, moved to the opposite side of the lot, got out, and bolted inside the store. I grabbed the spoons and took my time inside. Then I tried to call my friends to walk me back out, but my phone was dead. I look outside, and now there's a white van parked right next to my driver's side door. It's running and looks empty, but the back windows are colored. Huge red flag. I ran to customer service and explained everything, but they didn't really take me seriously and just thought I was some kid being dramatic. At that point, I didn't see the original car, but there was no way I was stepping out with that van next to my truck. I waited 30 minutes. Then finally, the van pulled forward from the side of the building, and the original car reappeared. I see them talking, then both vehicles drive off together. I waited another 10 minutes just to be sure. Then I bolted outside, jumped in my truck, and sped to my friend's house. I pull into his garage, heart pounding. One of my friends looks down and asks why there's an orange mark on my tire. My stomach drops. That car must have marked me while I was inside. We checked the rest of the truck and found something in the bed. It was a metal pipe, about 2 in thick, maybe 18 in long, and it was wrapped in duct tape, half buried in snow. It wasn't mine. I was alone with no phone in a place I didn't know. I tried to laugh it off, but now that everyone's asleep, I can't stop thinking about what might have happened if I'd gone outside. Fast forward the next day, the police came and took the pipe, but they stated that they can't really do anything about it as nothing really happened. They said that they'll look into the license plate, but other than that, nothing much can happen as no crimes were committed. Comment below if you know the reason for the orange mark and metal pipe. One late at night, I was heading home, so I got on the subway. The car I was in was almost empty, with just a few people scattered around. I sat down and I started browsing through my phone. All of a sudden, something felt a little off. Sitting directly across from me was a woman between 2 older men, and the second I sat down, I noticed she was staring at me. Not casually watching me or glancing around, just full-on staring like she was locked in. I tried to brush it off at first by looking away, focusing on my phone, but that uneasy feeling stuck with me. I glanced up again, and sure enough, her eyes were still locked onto mine, completely unblinking. The longer it went on, the more it started to get to me. I shifted in my seat and tried to act like I didn't notice, but the intensity of her stare was hard to ignore. Then the train stopped, and a man stepped in. He was tall and wearing a trench coat. Without saying anything, he sat down right next to me which made me even more on edge. But the strange part was that the woman didn't react at all. She just kept staring straight at me, like he wasn't even there. And the two old men beside her didn't move either. It was like they were frozen. My heart was starting to race, but I kept pretending everything was fine. I didn't want to look paranoid, but something about this entire situation felt completely wrong. I'd glance up every few seconds just to check, hoping maybe she'd finally look away or blink or do anything else. But her expression didn't change one bit. As the train slowed down for the next stop, the man next to me suddenly stood up. Before I could say anything, he grabbed my arm tightly and pulled me out of my seat. I barely had time to react as he dragged me off the train. And a moment later, the doors closed behind us, and the subway pulled away. I was so stunned. I started yelling at him, asking what the hell he thought he was doing. I told him to let me go, and that I don't even know him. My voice echoed in the empty platform, and I felt my panic growing. Then he turned to me, looked me straight in the eyes, and said something I'll never forget. He said, "Calm down. I didn't mean to scare you, but I had to get you off that train." I was so confused, and I asked him why. Then he said, "The woman across from you was dead. The two men beside her were holding her up to make it look like she was still alive." I was so speechless. I didn't even move. A few years back, I was renting this little house in Northern California, just outside the suburbs. One evening in the middle of winter, I got home from work after a long shift with some overtime. It was already dark, and the sky was full of clouds. So when I pulled into the driveway, the only light there was from my headlights in this small porch light. I stepped out of the car and caught this faint smell of cigarette smoke, which was weird because I'd never smelled that around the house before, and I didn't smoke. I looked around but didn't see anyone, so I shrugged it off and went inside. I was exhausted, not even 7 yet, but I figured I'd shower and call it a night. I crawled into bed and fell asleep. Sometime later, I woke up suddenly, thinking I heard something inside the house. At first, I wasn't too alarmed because one of my friends would sometimes drop by to use the shower after work before heading to his night classes. I'd even given him a spare key just in case I wasn't home, but he always texted first, and I didn't remember hearing my phone go off, so I reached over to check it. This was back when phones didn't auto-dim in the dark, and my screen lit up so bright it practically blinded me. I squinted and saw it was a little past 9, but I couldn't really tell if there were any texts. I set it down and called out my friend's name. No response. A couple seconds later, I heard heavy footsteps suddenly take off running downstairs. That's when the panic kicked in. I jumped out of bed and ran straight to the closet. I could already hear whoever it was racing up the stairs by the time I was getting the door open. Upstairs, there were 3 rooms: my bedroom, a spare room on the opposite side, and a bathroom at the end of the hall. Both bedroom doors were closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard the guy thunder down the hallway past my door and straight into the bathroom. Thank God for that. It gave me just enough time to pull down the attic access in the closet and start climbing up. I was halfway in when I heard him come back out of the bathroom. My feet had just disappeared into the attic when my bedroom door slammed open. I immediately froze. He ran into the room, stopped for a second, then bolted to the spare room. That room just had some storage boxes, a few weights, and a table where I painted miniatures. I guess he thought someone might be hiding in there, but didn't find anything. So he rushed back into my room and flipped the light on. Then, a second later, I heard the closet door fly open. I was crouched just above the attic opening, close enough that if he tried climbing up, I could try to kick him back. From where I was, I could only see from about his knees down. He was wearing dirty, frayed blue jeans and old, worn work boots. He stood there for a few seconds, then walked away. And that's when I heard this loud crash and a scream. Not just any scream. It was this furious, frustrated scream that chilled me. It sounded just like my stepdad when he used to lose his temper. The same kind of rage that eventually landed him in a mental hospital. Then the guy tore back down the stairs. I heard things being tossed around, furniture crashing, just chaos. I stayed completely still in the attic, afraid to even breathe. My phone was still on the bed, as I hadn't grabbed it when I ran. I had no idea how long he was going to be down there. So after a while, the noise stopped, and I started counting slowly all the way to 1,000. Then I finally climbed back down. The first thing I saw was that my bed was flipped completely over. That must have been the loud noise I heard right after he looked in the closet. I searched around but couldn't find my phone, so I grabbed the landline next to the bed and called the police. I stayed upstairs until I heard them shout from the first floor. Downstairs was a wreck. Chairs knocked over, the couch flipped, books and decorations scattered everywhere. The kitchen was worse. Every cupboard was open, food all over the floor. But oddly enough, the only thing missing was one kitchen knife from the wooden block. The cops did a full sweep of the place and found the side door had been forced open, probably with a crowbar. Out by the fence, they found a few cigarette butts, some foil, and an empty pen tube. One of the officers said that stuff's usually used by people smoking meth. He figured the guy had been watching the house for a while, probably saw me come home, and maybe even heard me pull in. That cigarette smell I caught earlier was from him. They gathered what they could and told me I should go stay with friends or family and get that door fixed as soon as possible. I didn't leave, though. Instead, I blocked the door with a shelf and stayed up the rest of the night cleaning up the mess. Every so often, I'd shine a flashlight along the fence line, hoping not to see anything. And luckily, I didn't. The next day I got the door fixed, had motion lights installed along the back and sides of the house, and even ran a phone line up to the attic so I'd never be up there again without a way to call for help. I ended up living in that house for 3 more years, and nothing like that ever happened again.